say that the reason he killed himself was because he suddenly woke up to the reality that it was no longer a game, that it was a real thing that was happening. So the internet and TV, very, very, very powerful. Just think of one thing. For instance, TV. Somebody is acting. Little child is watching. Somebody is acting. This person dies or is killed in the program. Next week, the same actor is acting again. What message is that giving the child? That death is not something that's real. And they just see this happening all the time, and the same people acting. And so it's very hard for a child. Yes, as an adult, we can think about it. We can reason it out. A child cannot. They're in there. They're watching it. Have you watched children watching television? Oh, their whole attention. And it's real. So it's very dangerous. Generational changes and loss of cultural roots. This is more and more. So these are some of the challenges that are facing parents. Now, I mentioned with that poem about teachers that there was another poem in that same book. The poem is called Divorced. When I was 7, my parents divorced. I felt rotten, just completely distraught. But I knew it was right. End of all the fights and all the noise. I did not want this to happen, but it's all right now. Rotten, spoiled, forgotten, foiled. Oh, the pain that child is going through. We as adults are not able to negotiate our lives, and the ones who suffer are the children. Now, this might help us to understand our students and our children better. I did these attitudes with a child psychiatrist, and there are 5 attitudes, parental attitudes, that are accepted that have an effect on the children. The first is something called overprotection. This very often happens with the first child. It's a new experience. We've never had a child before. Suddenly we have this child. We're very frightened. Something is going to happen to the child. So we overprotect the child. Oh, don't do this, don't do that. I'll do everything. And what happens? The child grows up lacking in self-confidence because the child hasn't had their own experiences. The second one is overindulgence. This is very, very common. This often comes from parents who don't have enough time for their children. So instead of spending time, they will overindulge the child, give them whatever they want. And also, some parents who didn't have anything as a child say, I want to give my child everything. Maybe a noble idea, but disaster in action. And the result, the child is undisciplined and has a lack of self-control. The third one is something called over-anxiety. This is different from overprotection. Over-anxiety is more an emotion, a feeling. Oh, I'm very anxious. Don't get your feet wet, you'll get a cold. We're putting that idea into the child's head. And so the child will become anxious, nervous, and in some cases, a hypochondriac, where the child thinks they're sick when they're not. I'm sure if you see a very nervous child in your classroom, if you see the mother, normally they're very nervous. Perfectionism. This is very common, and I suffered from this myself. Where the parent has an idea of what they want their child to be. I want my child to succeed. I want my child to be the best. I want my child to be a doctor. Maybe the child wants to be a hairdresser. But no, the parent, so that they feel that they have failed. This happened to me. My father wanted me to be a lawyer or something like that. And I wanted to be an artist. That's my character. And it ended up with both of us being quite unhappy. And I did win. I went to art school. But when I went to art school, my father wrote me a letter. And he said, "You are the black sheep of the family. You always have been, and you always will be." Well, fortunately, I'm a fighter. And getting a letter like that made me, it was awful, but it made me prove that I was not going to be a failure. But it's very difficult. I know my father had good intentions, but it is a danger to have too much expectation about our child. We must see what the child wants to do, what they have an inclination to do, and help them with that. The last one is rejection. And this doesn't mean a child who is thrown out of home. Rejection is very subtle. Parents who are always working, they don't have time for their children. The child feels rejected. Parents who are too busy with other things. And the result of this is the child will be aggressive and violent. Again, I have my own memory, probably one of the earliest memories I have when I was about 3 or 4 years old. I remember I was lying in bed and my mother came to say goodnight to me. And she was all dressed up. She was a very beautiful woman and she was all dressed up. She was going to go out with my father. And I remember putting my hands up like that to hug her. And she said, "Don't touch my hair." Because she just had her hair done, right? And it was like an arrow going through my heart. And after that, my nanny, who used to look after us, she came. And I went like this with her hair. And she didn't mind. So I grew up being closer to my nanny than my mother for many years. And my mother was a wonderful woman, but what I'm saying is that children are very, very sensitive. And they can feel rejected very, very easily. And sometimes our words, our actions, they make a child feel rejected. So we have to be very careful. Now we have to decide, what is it we want? Do we want a great child, a great person, or do we want a good person? Our world has many great people, but they are not necessarily good. Many of our leaders are great people, but not very good. But if someone is really good, they are great. So our goal is to have goodness above everything else. The rest will come in its time. But if we're just concentrating on being great, being clever, we won't necessarily have a good person. I'd like to suggest 3 principles for parents. The first, walk your talk. What does that mean? Don't know. What do you think? Walk your talk. Yes.
Do what you say.
Do what you say. Many people say, do what I say, don't do what I do. That doesn't work also. Just imagine this scenario, this situation. A father or a mother comes home from work very tired, just wants to relax. Little child is running around. Telephone rings. Child picks up the phone. Daddy, it's such and such from across the street. I don't want to talk to this person. They want to borrow something. They want me to do something. No, I don't want to talk to them. I just want to relax. Tell him I'm not in. Very simple. How often do we do that? Little white lie. But what are we actually saying to the child? We're saying it's okay to lie. But children are very honest. The child may say, Daddy says he's not in. Let your child chew his or her own fruit. What does that mean? Can you imagine you have a wonderful mango? Oh, the most delicious mango. You want to share this with your child, but you're afraid, oh, maybe the jaw of my child is not very strong. So you chew the fruit, you spit it out, and you give it to the child to eat. Blah. Disgusting. What does it mean? Each child has to have their own experience. Unless you touch something that's hot, you don't know what the meaning of the word hot. Sometimes children have to fall down and bruise their knees. That's part of being a child. We have to have our own experiences. We cannot live the life for the child. And last, and probably most important, love and law. It doesn't mean, if we're loving, it doesn't mean that we give in to everything or we overindulge. Love means doing what is best for the other person. And sometimes love can be cold. Sometimes love can be hard, like ice. But it comes from a place of wanting the best for that person. So there has to be that balance. It's like a river. If the river doesn't have banks, what happens? What will happen if the river does not have banks? Floods. It will flood. So we have to have that. So in terms of water, and I'm going to talk about this a lot tomorrow. I'm really going to talk. Today is more just preparing ourselves as teachers and parents. Tomorrow we go into the subject. But for instance, if we want our children to save water, we have to start saving water. And there are many ideas, how, for instance, in the bathroom, I'm not going to go through all this, you'll have all this in your CD. But rather than taking a 15-minute shower, we can just take a 5-minute shower. We turn the tap off when we're washing our hands. We show this example to our children. In the same way, in the kitchen, how we save water. And in the garden, you will have all this, don't worry. But it's just to give an example that if we want the children to do this, we have to do it first, both as teachers and as parents. I'd like to just share with you some things that children have written about their parents here, about their mothers. My mother has taught me to be good and wise. Without her, I would never have been born. Whenever I cry, she wipes my tears. Behind every child's success lies the mother. She is the symbol of sacrifice. Even the milk she gives us to drink comes from her blood. Everyone knows that a mother's kindness is without limit. It is the greatest thing in the world. For 9 months she carried me in her womb and has brought me up with love. My mother loves me very much, and I love her too. My mother works herself to the bone for the sake of myself and my brother. We must do our utmost to repay the gift she has given us by helping her in every way we can. One more. When my mother punishes me, she in fact suffers more than I do. She does it out of love because she wants me to be good. A mother sacrifices everything for her child. Therefore, we must know the meaning of gratitude. If we have no gratitude, how can the world exist? And maybe just to end, I show you a few pictures the children have drawn. I was going to actually go into the aspect of the child with some case studies, but I think I'll bring that tomorrow because you've had a very long day. So I'm just going to end with this part. Now I asked the child who drew this picture why she put a bird's nest on the mother's head. And she said the mother is like the mother bird who is protecting the nest and keeping it warm and looking after the eggs. This next one is very interesting. I asked this girl, what is the meaning of this picture? Why have you closed the face of the mother? And she said, it is to symbolize that the mother's eyes are always watching. They are always aware of what we're doing. She said that the sun symbolizes the mother, that the mother brings light and warmth into the life of the child. The road symbolizes that the mother shows us the right path to follow. The mother is the first teacher. The mother held us in the womb for 9 months. So you see how deeply children think. It's really amazing. So just to really end this session, I'd like to sing a song with you. Yes, you'd like to sing? Okay. And I believe that you have this song also in Indonesian. So we'll sing it first in English, and then you can sing it in Indonesian. I will love and respect my mother. I will listen to my father's words, for I know in this world there's no other who will love me with a love so true. I will always be kind to my mother and live up to my father's words, for I know in this world there's no other who will love me with a love so true. Indonesian, please. Okay, listen. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Ku kan dengarkan perkataan ayah, karena tahu di dunia ini tiada yang lain yang menyayangiku dengan kasih sejati. akan selalu baik pada ibuku dan patuh pada perkataan ayah. Karena tahu di dunia ini tiada yang lain yang menyayangiku dengan kasih sejati.
Okay, so we're just one last song, and then we finish. This song shows that sometimes
yang menyayangiku dengan kasih sejati.
Okay, so we're just one last song, and then we finish. This song shows that I know that this is right. So when they say do this, do that, I should do it without a fight. Sometimes I may not listen. I may think it's unfair. But what I must try to understand is they do it because they care. Everyone, my parents really love me. I know that this is right.